Hi, welcome. In this video, I want to respond by way of a very popular balanced dog trainer. It goes by the name of Michael Ellis, in which Michael Ellis is attempting to elevate balanced dog training above force free. And this is where, again, I talk about how it is that both these groups of trainers, those who identify as balanced and force free, have bought into this idea that training is a learning based exercise. And again, I talk about the inherent problems that it sets up for so many dogs and owners based on a counterfeit picture change within the framework of response. Now, absent, again, I talk about the two core ingredients that make up a process by way of influence and control, which are reconciled by way of a intentional interaction based method. Now, I'm going to play some of this. I'm going to stop on the way to fill in some gaps here to respond to this narrative being put out on social media.
Want a really well-trained dog with super reliable without having to use any aversive. That would be wonderful. The people that have bought into this unfounded ideas around that, they have a really easy job. You talk to somebody that doesn't know anything about dog training and that all sounds good.
So here I talk about this as well in terms of, how it is that those who, market this, idea that trains a learning-based exercise versus, taking the path of a intervention, how they have the home field advantage, okay, when it comes to playing into people's emotions. Again, when you look at those who are struggling the most in their relationships with their dogs, what you'll find is that the common denominator is those who have a higher level of emotional connection with their dog. And this goes into, the connection itself at the social level, and with how a dog's decision-making process is influenced and governed, how those emotions, translate into weakness in terms of, I talk about strength and weakness, how it's defined through nature, through the relationship, the role of control and influence by way, again, of a process. And it's no different than, again, I talk about the parenting example so often in my videos in terms of, again, if you're looking at, what parenting style would represent, this system of training, well, it takes a path of the authoritative parenting style. And again, we talk about, the role of the parent, and even talk about, certain things such as, corrections, or, you hear about discipline and punishment. Well, you need to really kind of step back and consider, how is parental influence established? Okay, so again, I talk about that in terms of relationship. But here's the thing, again, we talk about balanced dog trainers who are attempting to elevate, try to say, well, balanced dog training is better than force free, and how both these sides are playing off of each other. Understand both these groups of trainers have actually aligned with the very problem I talk about in terms of a process that does not reconcile those two core ingredients, influence and control, that they do not bring them in the right way, and therefore leaves the door completely wide open for dogs to continue to hold control in their relationship, for behavior issues to continue to manifest, and for the relationship to not get better. Okay, understand that this is part of the package deal. So here you talk about, here you have Ellis talk about, well, he's trying to make the argument that they have the home field advantage, and they can, they sounds good, and they're playing off of that. But understand, balanced dog trainers, they're doing the same thing. Okay, in fact, what they're doing is they're playing both sides of the fence. They're kind of having their cake and eat it too. So they're like, this is why when you ask a balanced dog trainer about what represents training, they'll say, oh, we use positive reward-based methods. Many trainers, they use treats. They use clickers. Okay, they're, because that's the point. The point is they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're playing both sides. And again, this sets up the same problem for so many dogs and owners, the blame shifting on the dogs. The only difference here is balanced dog trainers are trying to have their cake and eat it too by trying to bring corrections, what they call corrections, in, even though through their idea of, corrections and trying to bring influence into this superficial process, it doesn't align. Okay, it does not reconcile the role of influence, because it does not come in. It can't come in the right way through a non-interaction based approach. Okay, this goes into this issue. So here they're trying to play kind of like the victim in a way, to say, well, this group has this advantage. It's kind of an unfair way. Well, no, I understand balanced dog trainers, they're playing the same right game. Okay, they're playing both sides. So when I say that, well, training is not a learning based exercise, well, this triggers balanced dog trainers just like force free. They get upset at hearing that, but there's your line. Okay, understand when I say the training's a intervention and it takes the path of a intentional interaction based method, well, there's the line in the sand. Okay, balanced dog trainers, they don't subscribe to that. That's not how they approach a process. They approach it like force free trainers with how they're jumping in, using motivating agents, getting dogs to respond, while assuming that those responses can be trusted. Now understand that that's what it is. It's assumption based. There's no criteria to actually establish that. What's their criteria? Their criteria isn't based on influence and control as kind of like the litmus test. It's based on, okay, it looks good, it feels good, just like force free trainers. Well, it must be good. That's their baseline.
Like, oh, look, there's scientific information on it. No, I don't want to hurt my dog. No, I don't want to scare my dog.
So right here, and so you pay attention. So here, this is the thing, correction based, right? So, balanced dog trainers saying, well, they use corrections, right? And here's one of the issues I talk about this, how this word is brought into this narrative. They use the word behaviors within a superficial framework of responses. And so the word itself really kind of illustrates or demonstrates the superficial way in which these trainers are engaging a process focused on superficial response. So when I talk about, behavior, okay, when I talk about relationship, I'm talking about a expressed state. Okay, I'm talking about the dog's state of mind, how, control manifests, how it's being expressed. So when I talk about being dialed in the level of dog thinking, that's not balanced dog training. Okay, balanced dog trainers are not dialed in that way. You need to be dialed in that way. They're not dialed in that way. So when they correct the dog, they're oftentimes way delayed. Okay, they're not dialed in, so they're in a reactive posture. And this is where you get into the cranking and yanking type of issue, or influence isn't coming in anyway to deal with that level of stinking thinking, to deal with the relationship. So the relationship doesn't actually improve, okay, because it has to reconcile. You have to engage the dog's state of mind. You have to engage the relationship that way. And it's a temporary process. Understand, it doesn't go on forever. It's a point in the relationship where you have to, that process has to be defined that way. Influence and control have to be reconciled that way. So here you have Ellis going on saying, well, and here, mark and reward. Well, what are you rewarding? I mean, these are the things I talk about. You're rewarding a response that you're assuming represents perception of dogs are changed. That's inherently flawed because the two core ingredients are missing. Okay, if those core ingredients are missing, then you're assuming, and this is based merely on appearances at a response level, it doesn't align. Okay, you can't, the criteria is missing. Okay, balanced dog trainers are guilty of the same thing. So here talking about train alternate behaviors replace undesired ones. This is where you get this whole thing about, again, superficial responses. Difference between, again, changing the focus of a dog. Now I use the example of like pulling a chocolate bar up for the selfish child example. When a child's mouthing off at a parent, you pull a chocolate bar out and the focus shifts to the chocolate bar. Well, how the dog training world's set up, they take that shifting of focus in those moments where, bad behavior is happening or, control is manifesting, and that's their baseline to work off. Say, oh, there's a good moment. You're bribing the dog, you get treats. Oh, there's a good moment. Well, again, how's that being packaged up? Is that moment really good? Absolutely not. Most cases, you're just shifting focus. I talk about the role of influence being defined through intercepting, okay, control as manifested. It's like a parent-child, again, the parent-child type of dynamic where there's that type of interpersonal interaction where you're addressing the actual behavior directly. Demand, parental influence is part of the equation for change. Here's that permissive, bribery-based idea of things.
No, I don't want my dog to hate me. No, I don't want my dog to be a pessimist.
I don't want to cause fear.
And so for us, we have a much harder job.
So there's the same thing, fear. So this is one of the other themes when I talk about this whole thing about trainers, and this includes balanced dog trainers and force-free, not being able to reconcile the response to the relationship. I understand this is one of the big missing things that's part of the dog training world by way of reactivity. Okay, especially when you bring those core ingredients in at a certain level, not the right level with balanced trainers and force free, but then you get a reaction of a dog. The tendency is to do what exactly? Absolutely, well, go towards accommodation, bribery, to gain agreeableness. Think about what I'm saying. Gain agreeableness. Think about it'd be no different than, say, as a parent, you have a bad reaction from a child because you're starting to confront the issue, and because you don't like, that reaction, right? You engage in what? Bribery. Oh, yeah, sure, you can calm the waters. Doesn't mean you're fixing anything. Okay, understand that based on the social dynamic, based on dogs as social animals, it follows the same dynamic. That's the problem. But here you have balanced dog trainers trying to, and again, what has happened here, trying to say, oh, well, we don't have the home field advantage. Well, no, actually, they're actually playing the same game. Okay, they're on the team. Okay, they're on the approach training as a learning based exercise team. So but the difference is they're playing both sides. Balanced dog training, that's what it represents. They're able to play play both sides at the same time. And so really, for them to complain about, well, we in here is saying, well, we have a hard job. Well, of course you have a hard job because you're in agreement with this idea. So, your job this is where the confusion comes from. This is why they're compromised, right? We talk about why they're getting challenged or losing their tools. Of course they're going to lose their tools because they've been playing the game, okay? So, based again on what this idea itself, you have to apply critical thinking, but once you understand this idea itself, what it represents, at its core level, in terms of motivating dogs to respond that way, then influence doesn't fit in there. Okay, they're trying to bring it in, what's called the four quadrants. They're trying to bring a negative in to kind of firm up this idea. And don't get me wrong, influence control is needed. So in the scheme of things, yes, balanced dog trainers change will happen through that approach at a certain level. So they're using that too. But if you go really into the heart of this issue in terms of why it is that they're still not going to win the war here, because the idea itself, and then based again, you take that to the issue about society, more permissive. It's like the perfect storm. It doesn't, number one, it doesn't fit in anyway, and so they're going to lose the war. Understand, there's no way, but they've been playing both sides of the fence anyway. So they're tied into this idea. I'm not. I don't accept training as a learning-based exercise because it's not. It's an intervention.
They can make really blanket emotion-driven statements like that and get away with it
but balanced dog trainers do the same thing. Okay, this idea itself. Okay, when you jump into a relationship problem and you attach this idea and you're motivating dogs this way, then you're by default you're playing into the emotions. Okay, understand that it doesn't take the path of a power play. So balanced dog trainers are guilty of doing the same thing. So for balanced dog trainers to even complain about this or try to make this argument, it's a contradiction. Okay, understand that.
People want to believe it. The average person wants to believe it. Right? And that goes a long way. And we have to be much cleaner about everything.
So stop here. So we have to be much cleaner. That's so ridiculous. I mean, you can't get any more contradictory or confused if you're identified as a balanced dog trainer. This is why when Robert Cabral came out and made that statement, which again, I put videos out about that, talking about, science has no place in dog training. Think about that. I mean, based on what balanced dog trainers are marketing by way of the four quadrants. And you hear many balanced dog trainers say, well, balanced dog training is, more science-based. So, and then you have other trainers like Gary Wilkes, coming out talking about, the real clicker training, right? Trying to bring, realness in, trying to say, well, balanced dog training because they bring influence into the equation, they correct dogs, that it firms this idea up. So they're trying to say, well, it's a total contradiction. But understand that the problem here is the fact that they're tied into this idea. There's no cleanness about it because to be clean about it, you have to break free from it. When I say that, again, I don't approach training to learn-based exercise, there's the clean break. Okay, so, but again, my encouragement, again, anyone listening to these balanced dog trainers on social media, I encourage you to challenge their statements. Don't take my word for it. go and do your research and then look at all the inherent problems happening in the dog training world. Those aren't accidents or coincidences. I did a whole series on, on all those controversies. In fact, I went on, you can watch it, Miracle Canine's debate, and had that very uncomfortable conversation these trainers don't want to have, they can't have. I went on there, I connected these dots, and and I say these aren't accidents. Okay, these are all symptomatic. These are all inherent to this issue. This is what's creating the confusion. So if you're looking for any of these balanced dog trainers thinking that somehow they can clean this up, they can't clean it up. You can't get any more unclean than identify as a balanced dog trainer. But you have to apply critical thinking to understand what's going on here. So again, check out the information I put out. Lots of great information. I talk about not just the problem, but the solution by way of a intentional interaction-based method. Thanks for watching.